And I think the first thing that's most relevant to the context of, data collection surveillance, how all these systems are affecting our lives, from someone who's not trying to sell you something, is that audiovisual ingestion and interpretation has become wildly faster. Back in the day, in 2013, when I came forward and revealed that the NSA was, collecting in mass all of this data as much as they could at the backbone layer, telecommunications providers, internet service providers, data centers internationally. The first thing, literally, from the President of the United States, their line of defense was, nobody is listening to your phone calls. Because this was the image that they knew from their poll testing that everybody had of what surveillance is. Some man with a headset, listening and writing things down. Of course, nobody was listening to your phone calls at scale. That was done on a targeted basis. But there were investigations even back then into feasibility. Could they do it? Of course, the reality was they couldn't be dead yet. They could, parse out a couple lines. They called them voice cuts. We would kick voice cuts over to analysts and translators to say, for this person, it was this. But on the mass scale, it wasn't really there. Well, back then before, in the intervening years, it took about an hour to analyze a minute of video, right? So the ratio wasn't really there. There was a whole lot of processing for a very small amount of data. Now it's the reverse, and you can use the recent models. I think NVIDIA just put one out as competitor to the Whisper model, which is very common, where it can do, I think, 1 hour of processing can interpret 30 hours of video. And when you think about the just distance and how quickly this is going, the ratio of computation to ingestion, this is going to be cheap enough computationally to put on chips. And so what happens when this is done on chip? You use the system on chip like a sock in your phone that handles video and whatnot. They already have these like AI cores that they're starting to put in things. When it's in every convenience store camera, right? When it is in every waiting room at the hospital, when it's at the entryway to the shopping mall, when it's above the checkout line, when you're buying a ticket at the movie theater, everything like this. And then all of these things can just, every conversation that's happening around them, and they can do different voice identity, like it won't know who you are initially, right? It just sees the voices. But then these things can begin to integrate, all right. We have speaker location, we have this many faces in the scene, we have this many voices in the scene, we can begin doing, this is the speaker, is this face, can we associate this face with this camera feed, with over here, it's the guy in the red shirt. You already buy cameras off the shelf from like Hikvision and Dahua, they're the Chinese surveillance leaders. They can do this attribute detection where they go, these are the different outfits that people are wearing in the scene, and move them from camera A to a different field of vision, camera B, and then try to cross-associate these and create sort of movements to track people across fields. Now, what I'm saying is this is very crude, but just in the last 6 months, we've seen this kind of algorithmic advance. Sorry, I just heard something in my ear there. I think maybe it was somebody backstage. What I was saying is that right now you can take the feed of all this surveillance footage and you can shim this in for free, sending your footage folder or your event stream, which just cuts out not the whole 24/7 camera feed, but just when they see somebody cross the line, when they see a license plate pop up, when they see a face of interest or whatever, pop that up over your voice model and go, I want to know everything this person said, even though nobody's there, no one ever listens to the footage. And I want to start flagging on phrases that come out of that, or I just want to report of that. That can be done right now. But once this is commoditized and productized, the definition of public utterance, right, things you have said that are not in a protected space, a private space, begins to expand. To include what you whisper to your wife in an elevator when you're alone. There's no one to pass you. There's that security camera in the ceiling. And a lot of people now don't even think that the cameras have audio on them, but increasingly they do because it's simply so cheap. So that's the audio side of the ingestion. Video model capability is what I would say is starting to get there. This is for generative imaging primarily, but video data sets that are annotated for actions are beginning to become publicly available. I saw Google release one of these recently. I think it's called AVA or AVA, where it's like little 5-second clips that say the man is walking, he's giving something to someone else, these people are fighting, whatever. The point of this, and it sounds not tremendously interesting or useful, but as with audio, this dovetails into the interpretability by machines of footage without what has been in the past, sort of that choke point that nobody's listening to your phone calls with headsets there when we're paying a person a salary to do this. Now you've got a machine that can just be spending 24/7 doing this, and that's coming because the interpretability of video, by which our ability to interrogate video is increasing in that beginning scale. Then the third thing are world models that I've seen. This is the use of generative models to simulate plausible physics interactions. So a drop of water might go down the wall properly, will it drip? There's a sort of causality in basic memory. The idea that if the camera starts you looking in a mirror in the bathroom or whatever, and you spin, the door behind you, will it be the door that was seen in the mirror at the beginning of the scene, or will it be a rainforest? Cinematically beautiful, but somewhat less relevant to personal hygiene and context. Those things are beginning to improve. Again, these are proved now, or baby's first step. But this brings us to the next thing. What is not public, to my knowledge, is what is the state of the art in training models to understand how individual and collective network flows. When we're talking about not audio data, not visual data, not LLM, just raw crunched text data from a Common Crawl or whatever. But the emissions of all of your devices, packetized as they go across the routers of the world, not just your phone, but your laptop, your car, which has a cellular modem in it, and creates events as it goes down the roadway, to all of these license plate readers that are everywhere, your refrigerator, your office, your school, your electronic payments, your Amazon history, your air travel, your Gmail box, and so on and so forth, because all of this data has been carefully stockpiled and labeled and organized for decades to AI people who are constantly looking for training data. This stuff is like a big, beautiful turkey that's just sitting there waiting to be put in the oven. And it's all sitting on the shelves in the hands of many, many, many governments. I would say all major governments, and many, many, many corporations. Now, we know all of these institutions would be very, very interested in the kind of capabilities that such a model would produce, because they can tell us a lot about people that they will never reveal directly in text, they will never reveal in voice. These are things that are not public utterances, but private habits, proclivities, where you go, what you do. The order that you open websites in the morning probably uniquely identifies you relative to even other people in your cohort, even other people living in your building. And they can start to identify your fingerprints, your targeting. And that's just if you're generous enough to assume they're doing this for advertising purposes, right? Lord only knows how governments will apply these. But my point is that nobody's talking about these capabilities, the capabilities of these models yet, so we don't know if they exist in an operationally useful form. 100% people are doing these in universities, small scale. We don't know how they're doing them at large scale. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. My bet, and I have a pretty good record here, is that they do. And if they haven't already been baked, right, if I'm wrong here, I think they are certainly in the oven. And so that means we have a matter of time until these things are out and being used. I'll try to go through my conclusion here quickly. But now I want to reflect on modern society and averages and how this relates to AI more broadly. Popularity is really just another way to describe the average of our collective behavior. But progress, the thing that drives us away from the way that things have always been toward the new hot thing, whether we're talking about practically or we're talking about politically, that arises from deviation from the norm, which is to say it is unpopular, it is abnormal, it is new, novel. Or a more generous way of describing it would be pre-popular. But the idea here is that the new can never be the average. The new can never be the popular initially. And all of these systems sort of are training on the averages. So what happens when we begin weaving in more and more systemic guardrails to return behavior through these government corporate systems, through these flagging surveillance systems that go, oh, something strange happened here, you might want to take a look at this. What happens when we start making in guardrails to return behaviors from the abnormal toward the normal? To nudge, to flag, to warn, and eventually interdict deviations from behaviors that are desired by the system, rather than desired by the individual, by the person themselves, the person who's out there living a free life. And I think this raises the question, can there be freedom without free choice? And how can we guarantee free choice when we're increasingly trapped in this little system menu of false choices that's being provided by Facebook, by Twitter, by whatever, TikTok, that's trying to keep you scrolling, keep you in there like the casino removes the clock from the wall. Of course, you, personally, magnificent little mavericks, with your brave and irrepressible souls, you can make the free choice, right? But can you still make a application to the human resources system and get a job afterwards? Can you get a mortgage? Will you qualify? Will the dating app match you with anybody except serial killers? Because that's sort of where you want to think of the system, valuing non-normative behaviors, right? They're not really looking for exceptional in a positive sense, at least as I've seen in many of these examples. They always see the departure from the average as kind of the garbage output. And so if the different becomes the garbage, where are we headed? Now, if you believe that you're being unfairly bucketed, evaluated, or ranked, or scored, or otherwise mistreated by these systems, will you be able to challenge that? Because right now, you already can't find a phone number or an email address to contact somebody at Google or Facebook if their idiot systems ruin your life. It's impossible, right? They don't provide that. They don't see themselves as being in the business of customer-facing support, right? You're not their customer anyway from their thing. How's that going to work with surveillance systems? How's that going to work with the human resources system? How's that going to work with the mortgage loan system? I don't know how any of us are going to be able to argue with a turnstile. How are you going to be able to argue with the parking lot denied access? But I am confident, sadly, that there are going to be some very sad viral videos in the future of people in a moment of furious desperation will be driven to try. These are behaviors that right now we see as psychotic. And if you saw it on the internet, if you saw somebody arguing with the surveillance camera right now, just screaming at it, you'd be like, oh, that person is crazy. And maybe it is crazy. But I worry that that's going to be less crazy because there's no one else to argue with. There's no human behind the machine. The machine doesn't care. You're not going to get the result you're looking for. But what is the target for our frustrations at that point? The bottom line of all this, the thing that I want you to remember is that what passes for artificial intelligence today, again, are largely just methods for trying to plot path toward the average in any mass of arbitrary data. And that is useful. Terribly useful. And some days, I think, frightfully useful. And so we have to guard ourselves right now from the beginning. People in this audience, the people who are in this industry, the people who are working on this, from the idea that the average is desired. The fact that the average is the ideal, collectively or individually. The average is not the ideal. The average is the enemy. The average is sloppy. The average is unoriginal. The average is uninspired. It is the bad habit. It is the skip workout. is the worthless television filler episode. It is us at our lowest and most common. More seriously, it is the weight of all of our past mistakes that have built up as we have grown and learned. We are smarter now, today, than we have ever been in the past as children. We need technology to help humanity escape away from the average and toward our finest moments. What I fear is that an ignorance of this is more likely instead to chain us toward that weight of our past mistakes. So I'll leave you with this so we have some time for questions. We must guarantee for our people everywhere a freedom from the system. Because if we do not have freedom from the system, we will be reduced inevitably to simply pieces of it. Thank you. Let's go to questions.